This year, the Social Security and Medicare trustees released a report on how both programs are doing. And Medicare was actually doing better than it was last year. And it was doing better by 2 years. Medicare is now solvent until 2026. And as John Glasser mentioned earlier, after 2026, it can still pay 87% of the cost of the program. So why is Medicare doing better? Well, it's in large part because of the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act made several structural reforms in the Medicare program that actually helped improve the solvency. And since passage of the Affordable Care Act, Medicare has actually gained 9 years of solvency. So it's been really good for the
Now, these programs work because they're basically broad-based social insurance programs. That's basically all they are. And they work because not everybody uses the services at the same time. For example, 90% of Medicare beneficiaries spend less than $3,000 on medical care during the year. Probably didn't know. They probably think it's more than that. Well, it is. If you're near death or you're older, it's a greater amount. 25% of Medicare expenses are spent in the last year of life, and 9% in the last month.
Medicare is under attack, unfortunately. Even with the rosier picture where Medicare is actually better, it's 9 years solvent. We have increased by 9 years in solvency. You still have individuals in Congress that are trying to knock the program, are trying to privatize it, are trying to do all kinds of things, and basically all of these ideas that they're coming up with, they're shifting costs onto beneficiaries. And one of them is raising the Medicare age. They want to raise the age from 65 to 67. What does that mean? Well, it means that the people that are 65 to 66-year-old, they're going to have to do one of three things. They'll either have to continue working so they can continue to have coverage through their employer. They're going to have to go on Medicaid, and that is if they qualify for Medicaid. Not everyone will qualify. Or they'll have to purchase private insurance in the exchange. Again, what this does is shifts costs onto beneficiaries. It also, if you continue to work, it's going to shift costs onto employers. If you go on Medicaid, that will shift costs to the federal government and the state government. And if you have to go and purchase insurance in the private sector, that's going to shift costs onto you. There have been studies that Kaiser has done that shows that there would be a 3% increase. That's $141 per enrollee for those 65 and 66-year-olds that go on the exchange. And it will also be more expensive for people that are on Medicare, the 67 and above, because you're losing the 65 and 66-year-old, which are the healthiest seniors, which cost the Medicare program less money. By taking them out of the pool, it increases costs for everyone. So that's not a terrible idea that's being talked about a lot. And this is a really scary thing. It's means testing Medicare, and we already do it to a certain degree right now. What many people don't know is that beneficiaries with incomes of $85,000 and couples making over $170,000 pay higher Part B, which is the doctor portion of Medicare, and Part D, the prescription drug portion of Medicare. For both Part B and Part D, individuals, beneficiaries, pay 25% of the cost of care under those programs. Higher income beneficiaries, those that are means tested, the ones above $85,000, pay 35%, 40%, and on up. There is a proposal that would have those people that are paying 35% and above pay even a higher rate. The ones that are making 35 would pay 40%. And it goes all the way up to like 90% of the cost of Part B and Part D, the Part B and Part D programs. The other part of means testing, which is the part that's really scary, is that, right now, people that are making $85,000 and that have incomes of $85,000, $170,000, make up 5% of Medicare beneficiaries. They want to include 25% of Medicare beneficiaries. What that means is that someone making $47,000 would pay higher premiums. This is in a proposal that was sponsored over in the Senate side, and it was also in the president's budget, that individuals making that he would basically cover 25% of beneficiaries, and that would affect someone making $47,000. So it's something that the Alliance is very opposed to. Everywhere we go, we talk about this because this is a direct attack on middle class. On middle
Some of the things in terms of Medicare are important for you to know because these are going to be subject to negotiations, expanding Part B and D means testing. I mentioned that. There'll be a surcharge on Medigap policies, the hike in outpatient Part B deductibles, 100% cost for home health care aides, and possibly combining Part A, the hospital, and Part B, the outpatient and doctor services, combining those deductibles.
This legislation is being sponsored by Senator Rockefeller from West Virginia and Congressman Waxman. It would require drug companies to provide discounts for low-income Medicare beneficiaries like they do under Medicaid. Right now, low-income people under Medicaid, as well as veterans, those people get, when the government pays for them, the pharmaceutical companies give them a discount, like a rebate or some sort of discount, so they don't pay so much for those individuals because they're low income. Well, there's a group of people called dual eligibles, which they're on Medicare and they're on Medicaid because they're low income. Before the drug program was created, the Part D drug program was created, all those dual eligibles were covered by Medicaid because Medicaid had a drug program. When Part D came about in 2003, those people were transferred over to the Medicare program. Under the Medicare program, the government doesn't get these discounts. They get a little bit of discount, but there is no requirement that the pharmaceutical companies provide this discount. And so this was like a huge windfall for the pharmaceutical industry. And we're still paying for it today. And what we're trying to do under this bill is basically go back to the law before the Part D plan was created and say for these low-income beneficiaries, for these dual eligibles, the pharmaceutical companies need to provide this discount. And that would save the Medicare program $141 billion over 10 years. So those are the things that we can do to make Medicare more solvent and be in a better financial footing instead of shifting healthcare costs onto Okay, there is the debt ceiling. I mentioned that the debt ceiling is coming back up in the fall. Well, the House already has like a menu of options, and this is the House Republicans have come up with a menu of options that they want passed in order to raise the debt ceiling. And one of them is to force Medicare vouchers on everyone. And Medicare vouchers, again, what that means is that you would get a stipend. You get a certain amount of, a fixed amount of money to go out and buy insurance in the private sector. With Medicare, one of the great things is that everything that is medically necessary is covered. There's no limit that you can, if you had bypass surgery 1 year, and then the next year you fell and you broke your hip, or something else, some massive thing happened to you, you would be covered. There is no, they won't tell you, oh, I'm sorry, we already covered you for this, and there's no more money to cover you. Well, under the vouchers, you're going to get a limited amount of money. And that's it. And you're going to have to go and get insurance, in the private sector. And every year, the money that you get is not going to keep up with medical inflation. It's going to just keep up with regular inflation, and everybody knows that doesn't cover, the medical costs. So you're going to end up getting less and less money every year. So vouchers, Medicare vouchers, or sometimes they'll call it premium support. It's basically the same thing. It's just a different way of saying it. It's just a slight change in the program. We don't want that because you're going to get a limited amount of money, is what that means. And so it's really bad. The other thing that they have on there is means testing. Remember I mentioned means testing, where they want to cover, people, 25% of Medicare beneficiaries to be means tested. That means someone making only, with incomes of $47,000, which is not that much, would have to pay higher premiums. Not the 25%, they'd be paying, 35, 40, higher. So that's something that we're very opposed to. The other thing that they have on the menu is the chain CPI, which, as you know, it would be basically a change in the way your cost of living adjustment, the Social Security COLA, it would be a change in the formula whereby you would get a smaller cost of living adjustment. And everybody knows that your COLA doesn't even keep up with inflation right now. It barely helps you make ends meet. If you would get a reduction, well, you know what that's going to mean. It's, you know, I've already talked to some seniors that say that they're eating canned foods because that's all they can afford. Well, what are they going to do? Are they going to like go out and start begging on the streets? I mean, it's really bad. So the change CPI is the other thing, and then of course raising the Social Security retirement age. And I don't have to tell you guys how bad that is, particularly for people that have hard, you know, back-breaking jobs. I mean, it might be, you know, one thing if you're a member of Congress and you're sitting at a desk all day. It's a whole other thing if you're laying concrete. So, you know, that's what they have, but that's what they're going to, you know, push for. You know, so we need to be watching what the House is doing. And then in the Senate, there's a gang of 8 now that's meeting with the White House that is trying to push some of these things like the chain CPI and means testing for Medicare. So those are the things those are the attacks that, you know, are continuing, and we need your voices to make sure you contact your representatives, your senators, and make sure that they, you know, that when they tell you they support these programs, that they really mean it, that they really vote to protect these programs.